They say that family is everything, but what happens when family becomes your worst nightmare? Imagine this. It's your big day. You're all dressed up, ready to celebrate one of life's most special moments with your loved ones by your side. But then just as you're about to say, "I do," disaster strikes. A sudden burst of gunfire shatters the joyous occasion, and in a blink of an eye, your entire world comes crashing down. The person who was supposed to be your partner for life collapses before you, their eyes staring blankly into the abyss. And the unthinkable has happened. Your own flesh and blood, your sibling, stands there, a gun in hand, responsible for the chaos that now surrounds you. Welcome back, everyone. Today we read delving into a chilling tale, where familial bonds were severed by betrayal and the sanctity of life was treated so lightly that it was taken away at the altar itself. This is the tragic story that will leave you speechless. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's dive right in. On September 24th, 2001, Jennifer Wilbright was getting ready to marry the love of her life, Kevin Bright, in a beautiful ceremony. As she put on her white gown, adjusted her veil, and did a final check in the mirror, she must have thought she looked like a princess, ready to embark on her happily ever after. Her bridesmaids helped her into her gown, which had a long train, and was very difficult to put on by herself. So they went to the bathroom to make sure that every last piece of tape and tuck was perfect. The bride wanted to look her best for her big day. Once finished, she walked out to the strains of Canon in D and turned to face Kevin. He stood waiting for her, looking dashing in a black tuxedo. Love was in the air, and the promise of a lifetime of happiness together shone brightly in their eyes. The wedding was held at the First Baptist Church of Charleston. After the vows were exchanged, and the newlyweds had their first kiss as man and wife, the guests filed out of the church to the strains of Wedding March. The reception was being held at a golf course, and the party was in full swing when suddenly Jennifer's sister, Elizabeth Winkler, rushed into the room. Her face was pale and her eyes wide with alarm. She was followed closely by two men, one of whom had a gun. They approached Jennifer and Kevin, and without saying a word, the gunman opened fire. Jennifer fell to the ground, clutching at the wound in her chest. Blood seeped through her fingers, staining her pristine white dress. She could feel her life force ebbing away. The guests screamed and ran for cover as the gunman fired more shots into her. Then he turned his weapon on Kevin, who had also been shot multiple times. Both siblings collapsed onto the floor, lifeless. But how could something like this happen? What had driven Elizabeth to commit such an atrocity? And why did she take her sister's life on such a happy occasion? To understand the dark secret behind this heinous crime, we need to go back to the beginning of the story. Jennifer and Elizabeth grew up in a wealthy household in Somerville, South Carolina. Their father, Frederick, was a successful businessman, and their mother, Barbara, was a well-known figure in the community. Despite being born into privilege, the sisters were far from being spoiled brats. They were intelligent, articulate young women who seemed destined for great things. Jennifer, the elder sister, by 4 years, was known for her warm smile and infectious laughter. She was the kind of person who could light up any room she entered, and whose presence was felt by all. She pursued higher education after high school, eventually earning a degree in nursing. During her studies, she met Kevin Bright, the love of her life. He was everything she had ever dreamed of in a partner: kind, handsome, and with a great sense of humor. When Jennifer introduced Kevin to her family, they immediately took to him. He was a perfect match for their daughter, and they couldn't wait to welcome him into the family. Elizabeth, the younger sister, was equally impressive. She was a gifted artist whose paintings had already been exhibited in several galleries. She was passionate about her craft and had a unique ability to capture the emotions of her subjects on canvas. While Elizabeth's art was gaining recognition, her personal life was lacking. She had always struggled with feelings of inferiority, believing that she would never amount to anything. Despite her success as an artist, she still felt overshadowed by her sister, who seemed to effortlessly achieve everything Elizabeth longed for. As the sisters grew older, a rift began to form between them. Jennifer had everything Elizabeth wanted: a loving husband, a successful career, and a close-knit family. On the other hand, Elizabeth was still searching for her place in the world. She was jealous of her sister's happiness and resented her for it. This envy consumed her thoughts and twisted her perception of reality. She began to believe that Jennifer was intentionally flaunting her success, and that she was the reason for Elizabeth's failures. In her mind, Elizabeth became the villain, or so she thought. Then came the wedding invitation to Jennifer and Kevin's big day. Elizabeth knew that this was another chance for her sister to shine and steal the spotlight. She couldn't bear the thought of being in the same room as Jennifer, surrounded by people who would shower their compliments on her. For Elizabeth, it was too much to bear, so she decided to do the unthinkable. On the morning of the wedding, she called her boyfriend David and told him about her plan. David was a troubled young man with a history of violence and was serving probation for a previous crime. He had been in a relationship with Elizabeth for some time, but their romance was far from a fairy tale. Elizabeth had a controlling nature and often manipulated David into doing things his way. When she told him about her plan to kill Jennifer, he didn't hesitate to agree. He knew that Elizabeth was dangerous and didn't want to cross her. Plus, he saw this as an opportunity to escape his troubled past. Together, they devised a plan to carry out the murders. David would drive them to the church and wait in the car while Elizabeth carried out her part of the plan. Once she had done what she needed to do, they would meet up and flee. The time finally came for the wedding. Elizabeth arrived at the church, dressed in a beautiful black dress that accentuated her slender frame. As she walked down the aisle, she caught sight of Jennifer, resplendent in white. Hatred filled Elizabeth's heart, and she knew that this was her moment. She waited until the ceremony was almost over and the guests were filing out before making her move. She slipped out of the church unnoticed and made her way to the golf course. There she met up with David, who was waiting in the car. They drove to a nearby store where she bought 2 guns. Then they returned to the golf course. Elizabeth left David in the car again and went inside to find Jennifer and Kevin. She knew exactly where they would be and was confident that her plan would go off without a hitch. As Jennifer and Kevin were cutting their wedding cake, Elizabeth snuck up behind them and fired 2 shots into them. The guests screamed and ran for cover, but it was too late. Jennifer and Kevin had been shot multiple times and collapsed onto the floor. Elizabeth fled the scene, leaving behind a trail of carnage. But she wouldn't get away for long. The police were on her trail and soon they closed in on her location. She was arrested and charged with murder. The trial was highly publicized, and the nation was shocked by the senseless crime. Elizabeth's defense attorney argued that she was insane and should not be held accountable for her actions. However, the prosecution argued that Elizabeth knew exactly what she was doing and should be given the death penalty. In the end, the jury agreed with the prosecution and Elizabeth was sentenced to death. She was executed by lethal injection in 2018, bringing an end to the tragic tale of betrayal and murder. So what do you think of this story? What could possess a sister to do such a thing to her own sibling on such a joyous occasion? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and share it with others. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.